Refurbishing a vintage model steamboat, Part 16. Refitting the stern radio compartment cover, more superstructure strengthening, soft soldering and some painting. This clip shows me sticking together some pieces of mahogany. I'm using cyanoacrylate adhesive as usual. Epoxy resin is not necessary for this job. The cyanoacrylate adhesive really holds the parts together, provided of course that they are evenly coated. So I'm taking a bit of time to make sure that both sides of the mahogany being stuck together are very well coated in CA glue. Not only does the CA glue hold the parts together, it soaks into the wood and makes the wood stronger. So all I need to do now is clamp the three pieces of mahogany together using these convenient spring clamps. These spring clamps are very useful things to have in the workshop. I've got a box full of them and I use them a lot. So while the adhesive is busy setting, it's time to remove these damaged handrails round the stern. The stanchions and handrails around the bow of the boat are in good condition. A couple were broken, they were easily fixed, but this part around the stern is beyond repair. So what I'm doing here is unsoldering the handrail from the big stanchion, which is part of the superstructure support. And that was the easy bit. Getting the stanchions out of the wooden mounting is quite difficult. I don't know how they can be so well stuck in there. The problem that I found was I could not put sufficient pressure on the stanchion to remove it from the wood that it's stuck into without potentially ripping the wood off the boat at the same time. This job became increasingly difficult. In this clip you can also see how badly damaged the stanchions were. Really not worth sticking together, they would only just drop to bits. As I worked my way down the side of the boat, the job got more difficult, and you can see here that the wood gave way. It didn't snap off, it just came loose. It's a proper scarf joint. But I had to be so very careful not to smash this wood. By persevering and being very careful and going slowly, eventually the handrail came loose. So I put the whole assembly on one side to look at later. Then went back to removing the stanchions. It was slightly easier to do this with the handrail out of the way, but I still had to be very careful of the wood. But I'm pleased to say that I didn't actually damage any of the wood around the side of the hull. The only problem that I did have was that some of the stanchions left a little bit of brass in the hole. These will have to be drilled out very carefully before I fit the new handrail. Fitting this handrail will definitely be the last job on the boat. Over the years I've had a few scale boats, and handrails are a major problem. You catch them with your fingers, you catch them with your pair of pliers, you catch them with just about everything, and they break very easily. They look great when they're there, but they're a little bit fragile. I normally build open steam launchers like the old Edwardian Victorian type, and the good thing about these, they do not have handrails. Well, the ones I build don't, and also on the ones I build, the steam plant is fully exposed, so you can clearly see what's going on with the steam plant at all times just by sailing it past quite close to you. This job is like pulling teeth as far as I'm concerned. It is really difficult to do, and I was quite glad when I got to the end of it. By the time I'd removed all of the handrail stanchions, the three laminated pieces of mahogany were ready to fit to the boat. I cleaned them up on the belt sander, then using a piece of very coarse sandpaper, I thoroughly scratched the metal surface where I was going to stick the piece of laminated wood. Then, as I've shown before, I mixed up some epoxy resin and gave the piece of mahogany a very good coat of this stuff. Being very careful not to get any on my hands or any other part of my person. There is some health and safety advice about epoxy resin in a previous episode. Normally I would not do this so close to the boat, but it just makes it more convenient for the video. This clip shows me sticking the part in place and using spring clamps as previously shown to hold the part to the boat. Here I'm just checking if I have any drips of epoxy, and I don't, which is just as well because I use my finger. All I need to do now is leave the clamps in place until the epoxy is thoroughly set. Moving back now to the stern section. This stern section superstructure did not fit properly into the boat. It was a very tight fit and you had to squeeze it and pull it and push it, which may explain the damage to the handrails. And I don't know why it didn't fit properly. It's not made out of wood, so there's been no expansion of the wood. All the wood that you can see on the superstructure is bonded to a metal plate. Problem is, at the rear of this stern superstructure, there are a couple of lugs that are just not soldered in the correct place. Once I'd removed these lugs, suddenly the stern superstructure was a very good fit, and quite easy to locate and remove. It's a bit of a puzzle to me this, because everything else on this boat is very well made and fits together perfectly, The stern superstructure is still a tight fit, you need to get it exactly in the right place, but with a little bit of practice, the stern superstructure goes into place the first time. The next problem to tackle is holding it in place. It needs something to hold it in the centre, and the problem with this, I can't just leave it loose on the deck, because if this part ever found itself in the water it would go straight to the bottom. It's built on a metal plate. This underside view of the stern superstructure shows the metal plate, and the marks where I removed the mounting lugs. So now the superstructure needs fastening somehow to the boat, and to be held in position in the centre place to stop it springing like this, because the boat is slightly curved. Thankfully there is a convenient cross member just in the right place. So what I did was drilled it, tapped it, and put a bolt through, but I can't leave it like this because the bolt needs soldering in place. Here I'm having a quick test of the location, and it's still a little bit of a tight fit, but it's much better than it was. The solution to this was to enlarge the hole in the deck. The reason for it still being slightly difficult to put the superstructure in place is mainly due to the fact that the 4BA bolt protruding from the deck is a tight fit in the hole in the deck itself. So by enlarging this hole in the deck, everything was fine. What I did next was to reduce the diameter of the head of the bolt and screw the bolt into the crossbar. Then, using some soft solder, simply solder it in position. Not only is it threaded into the crossbar, it's soldered in position too. So all I need now is a nut for the top of the 4BA bolt. I made this little brass thing. It looks sort of nautical. It's something that you might find on a deck, I suppose. It's a better looking thing than a 4BA nut anyway. So now the stern superstructure is securely held in position. Time to give the inside of the boat a little bit of a repaint. This is some paint that I had left over from some work on the house last year. It's external grade weather shield paint, and it's really durable. So if it's good enough for the outside of my house, it's good enough for the inside of this boat. This is very expensive paint as well, so it should do a good job and last a long time. I can only really paint one side of the boat at once. I'm going to have to turn the boat round to do the other side. At this point I'm painting the centre part of the boat, so I thought I'd give you a bonus feature watching the paint in the stern dry. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks for watching and I hope you found it useful.